Okay, welcome to this week's edition of Hall Monitor. I'm Denise Clay Murray. I'm here with Larry McGlynn, and we are being joined by former City Council member Maria Quinones-Sanchez, who was one of the 11 people running for the Democratic nomination for mayor. But on Sunday, the Philadelphia Inquirer reported that she was suspending her campaign, and for a reason that actually makes a lot of sense to those of us who have been following campaign finance reform or the lack thereof for a while now. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk through a little bit of this experience, this journey.
So I guess my first question for you is, what ultimately made you decide that despite all of the effort that you had put into it, that maybe, it was time to, suspend your campaign?
So thank you. I mean, that, let's unpack that a little bit. I signed up for a campaign. We thought 4 or 5, maybe 6 people in the race. Understanding the historic moment of the 100th mayor, understood that there'd be 4 qualified women in the race. Then, we get into this race and there's 11 candidates, 2 billionaires, couple people with access to millions. And it was not only a crowded field, but it was really hard to break through, even with the numerous campaign forums, right? And so I felt a responsibility to the folks that I represent and who I wanted to give a voice to, and the donors who are supporting me, that when those reports were filed on Wednesday, we knew that people had changed the name of this game. And the fact is that City Hall is up for sale, and there's some people with a lot of money willing to buy it.
So when you say that City Hall is up for sale and there are people willing to buy it, what were you hearing from potential donors when you would talk to them about contributing to your campaign?
So, first, I want to acknowledge, and I'm incredibly grateful for all the people that gave us. We had over 500 donors and we raised $800,000. And under normal circumstances, if everyone was in that range of, 800 to, a million, $1.5 million, which is what a race like this should normally cost, I think we could have been more competitive. But when you're talking to donors who are very gracious and very supportive, and that based on Wednesday's reporting, you have self-funded folks and folks with access to a lot of money who are willing to put a whole lot more money, making this the most expensive race our city has seen. I had a responsibility to the supporters and the donors to say, as much as you're giving and you will continue to give, we can't compete.
Did that, because, those of us who have been looking at campaign finance and also looking at some of the other issues in the city, like, for example, your favorite trash man couldn't get on the ballot. And he said, this is no longer a venue for working class people. How disappointed were you to find that out firsthand?
So I'm not disappointed in my supporters and the folks who've given me money. I think, again, there's never been a candidate like me, an Afro-Latina, who's raised this amount of money. So I am incredibly grateful. But I think one of the reasons I supported public finance legislation in the past is because, with Citizens United, it's going to be even more challenging for voices and people like me to run unless they have access to those heavyweight donor base, right? Who can create these super PACs. And so that's why I've supported public financing. Furthermore, this election has demonstrated that we should also reform our election code around ranked voting, because the field is so crowded. And so hopefully a responsible person will win the mayoral race. I'll take the next few days and see how the candidates embrace my agenda, and consider whether I'm going to endorse someone. But whatever I do, the next 30 plus days, I'm going to get out into the streets and get the Latinos and my supporters to come out and vote, because they can make a decision where a race is going to be won on several percentage points. This community needs to come out and vote so they are seen and heard.
So can you get into a little bit about the Agenda Latina? Because they talk a little bit about it in the story I read, but I kind of like a little more depth. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think it's the things I've been talking about. We'll start with public safety because that's what everything polls, right? And everybody's responding to public safety based on their polls. I'm the only candidate that really talked about how do we make neighborhoods look safe, through infrastructure investment, not through police, right? Yes, we need police, but we need, we know where the next crime is going to happen. We know that because we don't have cameras, we don't have good lighting, we have blight. There are many things mayor can do to make those intersections that have become hotbeds for crime safer. Through things that have nothing to do with police. And there's a failure to acknowledge that and just do it, right? That was one of the things we were talking about the first 100 days. So for me, having someone embrace that they're going to make sure that these neighborhoods look safe, so that people can believe and feel that they are safe is hugely important. And I've done a lot of panels and I've not heard people really speak to it the way that I have. Some of the poverty work that we've been doing, people in this campaign talk about equity and governing for all. But the fact of the matter is we can't move forward in an equitable way if we don't readdress some of the disinvestment that historically has happened. And so when you say, I'm going to govern for all, but you are not willing to say, I'm going to readdress the lack of investment in certain neighborhoods, we can't move forward together because we're not equal. We're not at the same place, right? Neighborhoods are not at the same place. So I want to hear the candidates speak a little bit more depth in that. And then, when it comes to transformative legislation, we've done a lot of great things about income-based payment plans, on affordable housing, on land reform, and others that I want to see candidates speak to. And why that's important. The next mayor, as I've said on the trail, will build out the city over the next decade. Is it going to be a city that includes Black and brown people like me, or are we building a city for those who are coming?
Okay. Now, you said you're going to take like the next month to kind of figure out what you want to do in terms of an endorsement. Have any of your fellow candidates approached you already?
Yeah, I mean, I've either directly or indirectly, all of the campaigns have reached out. Some people I've talked to directly, people that I'm more aligned with. We've had direct conversations. I want folks to publicly commit to the agenda that I've put forward so that they can be publicly held accountable for it, right? Because this is not a commitment to me, it's to the people who I was speaking on behalf of and wanting to give voice to. So, people have to feel that folks are committed to them in the same way that I was committed to them before I make a final decision on that. But I understand the historic nature of this campaign, what is at stake. And I'm not going to come this far not to be able to influence, right, as much as I possibly can with my political equity, who wins.
Okay. Well, thank you. And I'm going to give you to Larry McGlynn, and we're still listening to Hall Monitor on WPPM 106.5.
All right, thank you very much, Denise. So what I would like to talk a little bit about is, and we get questions about this from people, the actual structure of a mayoral campaign. So before you even get started, how do you imagine that you're going to put this massive operation together?
So it's real important, those of us who've run for election before know that you kind of need a kitchen cabinet and you need skill sets that you don't have, right? You build a team around what are your strengths and also what are your weaknesses so that you can have a really comprehensive amount of knowledge, working knowledge, and muscle behind what you're doing. So all of us for years have been talking about the possibilities and looking at, what is your donor base? Obviously, for a candidate like me, the donor base is not as extensive as people who run citywide in the past. And so we always knew going in that we were going to have to work that space harder, and we're prepared to do that. But building a team of folks, there's an incredible amount of people in the city of Philadelphia who just love this city, understand the historic moment in which we're living, and believe that the city can get out of being the poorest city and be more equitable and more just for everyone. And so, surrounding yourself with those types of folks to talk through messaging about what you'd like to see, that it's not aspirational and it's not a policy we've read, but using my lived experience, the work that I've already done to influence, right, what you do, and how you try to connect with people was hugely important. Since my days in council, I've always believed in surrounding myself with very, very smart people who had the freedom to challenge me and make me better because of that. And I've been very lucky on this campaign to have that also. Have a lot of friends around the table, but friends who can be honest and hold me to a standard around thinking bigger and bolder than ever before. So from day one, I was out of my comfort zone, but I embraced that because I had a really strong base of support, not to mention, a wonderful husband and children who have always supported me.
So leading up to when you make the announcement that you're running for mayor, you're resigning for council, were there certain things that you felt I have to have these things in place, or at least have a really good idea, donors, staffing, that kind of thing? Otherwise, maybe I don't do this now.
So, particularly, as I recovered from my cancer journey, the political pundits, immediately start counting you out and saying, oh, no, she's not running because of cancer. And for me, I use the cancer journey to center me around why the here and now is important, because tomorrow's not promised, right? And if you want to have an impact, you have to lean into that. And so I did, even through the journey where I had an opportunity to say, given this situation, I don't want to run. It really centered me and recommitted me to what I wanted to do. And then you're looking at, who are your potential supporters, who will support you. I mean, I had, wonderful people like Judith von Zelnick, who is the chairwoman of one of the most prestigious search firms in the country, whose job is to find executives, right? And so for someone like her to sign on to the campaign and say, you're the leader for a city was very important to me. People like Wendell Pritchett, as he stepped away from his duties as interim president of University of Pennsylvania, who had been a chief of staff to a previous mayor. When you have folks like that saying, yes, Maria, I think you have the right combination of skills and lived experience, right, to make this work, that comes with talking to people, talking through with people, and building that kind of energy. And then, the team, Megan, who had worked for me in city council, who joined me on this side, has evolved and an incredible policy wonk person who understood how I thought and came forward. So I've been very lucky and very blessed with the people that have always surrounded me. And it's partly because they know how hard I work, when I make a decision, and they know that my commitment is people.
So what is that day-to-day like when you're running all across the city trying to get all these things done?
So, you do call time and you meet with people, and then you do call time again, and then you go somewhere and you come back and you do call time again. So there's a lot of phone calling all day long. But I'll tell you, going around the city and Southwest Philly, Northeast, and other places, and having people say to you, you're the fighter, right? We know you because when we see you fighting, was very important for me, right? To feel that sense of you get us, you see us, you're being authentic, you're not saying anything on the campaign trail that's different from neighborhood to neighborhood, and you're just as bold as you've been on city council. That was important to me because I wanted people in the city to see that I was them, right? I lived every challenge that many of them are living or have lived. but I also understand the opportunities that we have as a city. And that was, for me, the most gratifying part of this campaign was getting out of the district. And understanding that people outside of the district who have benefited from a lot of the work that I've done, that they also knew who I was and were willing to listen to the message.
So you told us kind of what your immediate future is going to be, but a little longer term, where do you think your skill set and your talents are best placed? Can you give us a little indication of maybe what you're looking to do next?
So, I want to continue to have community impact. I'm very lucky and very blessed, right? I can pick what I want to do next. I've been an executive, I've been a journalist, I've been an educator, I've done a little bit of everything. So I want to give myself a little bit of time and spend some time with my wonderful husband and children and grandchildren. But I can assure you that my chapter 2 is going to be even more impactful than my chapter 1, because I feel like I have a lot to give. And this city needs leadership, right? And serving in government is not the only place where you can provide leadership and have impact. And I've seen that firsthand, and I'm prepared to continue to do some of this work.
All right, I'd like to bring back Denise Clay-Murray here on Philadelphia Home Monitor.
Yes, thank you. I have one more question that is something that I've kind of been following around, since Hillary Clinton ran for president. And that is the fact that you are a woman trying to raise money, to participate in politics, and particular a woman of color trying to do it. Did you have like any kind of, I guess I'm trying to figure out the best way to ask the question, did you find yourself having to work a little harder than some of your male colleagues to get people who wouldn't, normally just say, oh, well, this person's a leader, let's put them in the office, to acknowledge that about you? Because, even though there's a whole bunch of women in this race, the specter of sexism is still kind of out there. And I was wondering if you had dealt with that during your campaign.
Oh, absolutely. The gender bias is real. The fact that you have 4 highly qualified women, but the men, continue to believe that they're better and could be better leaders than us is very problematic and speaks to the gender bias that still exists. But even within within the group of women, you have women who come from, middle class and more privileged backgrounds, right? So, as an Afro-Latina, and I'm sure, Sherelle Parker feels the same way. We always have to be better. We always have to work harder, right? So we didn't get in the game to whine about it. It is how we've gotten in the game and how we've been able to stay in the game, always knowing that we have to outperform and outwork everyone else to get, the same kind of attention that others get who walk different halls and are in different spaces that we're not always don't always have access to. So it's still a reality. It's a reality for women, but it's particularly a reality for Black and brown women in our society, and something that we have to continue to work at. I have never met a Black or brown woman not ready for that challenge when they get in this. They know that, because you can't get in this space without having confronted that, every single day, sometimes very direct, sometimes subtly. The fact that in this race you had male counterparts talking about that they would hire us, right? I don't know how many times they've said that.
That was kind of my favorite part of the whole thing.
It's like we need a job, as I've said, I was on a mission. I am on a mission. And that's why even as I exit center stage, I do that with an agenda that I need other folks to embrace. I'm not going to meet the moment and understand who I'm trying to represent and who needs representation and to be heard and seen in the city.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Former Councilmember Maria Quinones-Sanchez, former Democratic candidate for mayor, and good luck to you. And we will definitely be reaching out to you, because we're going to continue to follow particularly poverty and how it's going to be dealt with in the city as part of this mayor's race. So we will definitely be reaching out.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for your coverage.
Thank you.